Now that we've talked about emotions, let's see if colors have them. Before we start adding any color, let's make sure we have all our supplies ready. We need a bottle cap. Here's some examples. I'll talk about those in a second. Pencil, paper, paint, or crayons. I'm going to show you both paint and crayons in case you don't have one or the other. So we're going to start by tracing our bottle cap several times. You want to make sure that your bottle cap is the right size to where you can still cut it out after you've colored it. So this one might be a little small. This one is probably too big. Although if you're an older student and you want to do a variety of sizes, that would be really cool for what we're going to use this for later. So I'm actually going to use this one right now, and I'm just going to trace a few circles on my paper. This pencil is a number 3. So number 2 is what we use when we are taking tests and things. So I'm not sure if that shows up. I really hope that it does. If not, it'll definitely show up when I start filling it in with color. So I'm gonna add a few circles. They don't have to be neat. See how I went totally out on that one? Doesn't matter. This bottle cap is sticky. And I'd say once you just have a nice handful, because you can always pause to catch up. Okay, so here's your pause button. So if you need to pause at any time, do that. That's totally okay. All right, so I think I've got a few. If I need to add more, I'll add them. Okie doke. So now we're gonna add some color. So let's start with paint. So we've traced some of our bottle caps several times. So when we were talking about feelings, we learned that we can feel more than one thing at a time, and sometimes those emotions can be opposites. For example, when my daughter graduated high school, I felt really happy for her, but I was also sad because it meant she'd be leaving home. Some of you might be too young to remember the show The Wonder Pets, but one time my phone rang in the classroom and I said, "Y'all be quiet, the phone is ringing." And everyone got really quiet except this one student who sang really loudly, the phone is ringing." And then of course the whole rest of the class started singing the whole rest of the song. And I was angry, but I was also laughing. So see, you can feel two different emotions at the same time. So let's paint some of them. If happiness were a color, what would it be? Now let's talk about watercolors really quick if you're using them. I've already painted with these earlier today, so a few of them are wet. If they are dry, you need to wake up your watercolors. You do that by adding some water to them. Usually when I teach watercolors, I say yellow first, purple last. Goes in order of the rainbow. Well, mine do. These are praying. These are the best watercolors to me. The last one is black. Usually I pop this one out for my students because black is hard to control. Of course, this is your artwork, so if you feel black for one of the emotions, then use it, but I'll show you how to control it so that it doesn't go crazy. So what did I ask you? I asked you if happiness was a color. Okay, well, please don't pick the same color as me if you feel differently. But for me, happiness is yellow. So I'm gonna paint. It's okay if I go outside of my lines. And you can see this is kind of dark because that paint palette, that cake, was already woken up, so it has a lot of paint in it. So make sure that you rinse out your brush in between every color change. And to do that, hold your cup on the table and just paint the inside of the bottom of the cup. Okay, if you want to get rid of water, remember we don't tap like this because it shoots water everywhere. We drag it across the mouth of the cup. Okay, but I want some water because some of my paints might be still a little sad, or not sad, but tired. They've gone to sleep. So speaking of sadness, let's do that one next. So I've got happy. So what does sad look like? Okay, well, if you watch the movie Inside Out, those colors, those feelings had different colors, but for me, sadness is brown. Just kind of looks like a dreary, that just looks sad to me. All right, So make sure that every time I give you a new color word, another feeling, not a color word, another feeling, please pause the button and add your color, okay? Now let me show you, obviously, you know what to do, you know how to color. So let's say I am feeling angry. What does angry look like for me? Okay, well, angry for a lot of us might be a really angry mess, dark red, because my face usually turns red when I get angry. Fill it in as much or as little as you want. This is your color experiment. Okay? And don't forget, pause if you need to. What about if you are tired or overwhelmed? Tired or overwhelmed. So for this one, I'm going to use a little bit of black. You can see black goes a long way, doesn't it? Look at that. I barely touched it. That cake was dry. I added 1 drop of water and that's how dark it got. So I'm not going to go back into that tray again to get black. I'm just going to spread out what I have. And if my paintbrush starts to get a little dry, I'm going to add some water to it. So there's tired for me and overwhelmed. I'm going to rinse out my brush. Now you can see I did not use a whole lot of paint because it didn't change my color of my water. If my water now looks really, really dirty, pause the video. If your water looks dirty, pause the video, push the pause button, wash this out, and go get some fresh water. All right. How about lonely? What does lonely feel like to you? What color do you think lonely is? I'm not really sure. I guess, no, I think that might be too light. I think I need to make it darker when I'm lonely. What about when I'm worried? When you're worried? What do you feel like when you're worried? I am going to do something I wasn't planning on doing. So, no, I don't want that one. So when I'm worried, it sometimes feels the same as being overwhelmed or tired, except it's kind of like, here's where line is going to help us. It's kind of like my brain is this. So maybe that's worried or stressed or frustrated. Frustrated could definitely be that. I am just frustrated. I have definitely been frustrated during COVID-19 pandemic. What about when you're silly? Silly. When you're feeling silly, I think I want to do. And I really am thinking I want to add some line to that also. So when you're silly. So you don't have to paint it completely or color it completely. You can add your own types of lines. When I am very excited, I remember when I was a kid, excited to me always felt like orange. It always felt like orange, like the sun, like just happy, excited. All right, now think of a time that you felt more than one emotion. I want you to paint that in a new circle. So if you feel like you need to pause the video to do that, go ahead and do that. I'm going to show you an example. So remember the story about my daughter? So I was happy and I was sad. So happy I said was yellow. And then sadness was this brown. So when my daughter graduated, I was so happy for her. She had made it through all 13 years, kindergarten through 12th of school. But then knowing that she was going to get on an airplane and go to her next school adventure made me a little sad. So here's that brown. So now I have a new color. I was happy and I was sad. And just because I had two feelings doesn't mean that the feelings canceled each other out. It's the same with color. So I added yellow and brown here. They didn't cancel each other out. They didn't go away, but my two emotions came together, and they are better described instead of happy and sad as bittersweet. And colors can do the same thing. So I mixed the yellow and the brown together, and they came up with their own new color. So now that we can combine two feeling colors and make a new circle, give that your name, like name it something. What would you name that? All right, keep thinking about your feelings while you've been at home during this pandemic. And then I want you to do a few more. There's not an exact amount, but the more circles you have, the more you get to play with later when we are making our next part of this artwork. Okay, so just do a few more combinations. Let it dry. You can do this with colored pencils if you don't have crayons, or maybe your teacher wants you to do oil pastels or chalks or markers. I wouldn't do markers. Do you know why you wouldn't do markers? Yellow does not mix with a marker. It usually just dirties up the tip and ruins the marker, and you don't get a good blend of colors. So I would stay away from markers. But you can use your crayons, your paints, whatever materials you have or your teacher has assigned to do your color mixing. And then when we come back together, we'll see what we're going to do with these. So I thought you guys might be stumped with some feelings and couldn't really fill in your whole page. So if that's the case, here are some more feelings that you can use. Remember, you can pause at any time, but this page says, how do you feel? Angry, alone, scared, forgotten, lost, sneaky, ashamed, annoyed, surprised, bored, loving, yucky, brave, loved, shy, confused, nervous, responsible, grossed out, proud, mean, embarrassed, sad, disappointed, jealous, comfortably. That says comfortably, but I think it should say comfortable. Curious, frustrated. This was not a nice word, so I scratched it out. But instead of using the word they have here, how about when you don't feel smart? Kind, happy, uncomfortable, excited, hopeful, worried, grumpy, hurt, thankful, mad, joyful, strong, silly. Now go fill up your page, and I'll see you in the next video.